New Year's Eve is supposed to feel hopeful. It's the one night people believe the worst is finally behind them. A night filled with countdowns, fireworks, laughter, and the idea that when the clock strikes midnight, something changes. Something resets. But not every year ends cleanly. And not every new beginning is safe. Because while people celebrate, while they drink, while they look toward the future, there are moments that go unnoticed. Doors left unlocked. Roads driven without thinking. Houses that feel empty in a way they never did before. These are stories that happened on New Year's night. Stories where midnight didn't bring relief. Only silence. The first story happened in a quiet residential area on the edge of a city. A place where nothing ever seemed to happen. Rows of houses, clean streets, and neighbors who waved but never really talked. A man named Eric lived there alone. He didn't have plans for New Year's Eve. No parties. No friends visiting. Just a quiet night at home with the TV on low volume and a glass of whiskey he barely touched. As midnight approached, the neighborhood grew louder. Fireworks popped in the distance. Shouts and laughter echoed down the street. Eric stood by his front window, watching flashes of color light up the sky. When the clock hit 12, everything went quiet. Not slowly. Instantly. The fireworks stopped. The voices vanished. Even the wind seemed to die. Eric frowned, listening. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Not outside. Inside his house. Slow. Heavy. Moving across the floor above him. Eric froze. He knew he was alone. He always locked his doors. He hadn't had a guest in weeks. The footsteps continued, pacing back and forth, stopping occasionally, then starting again. Eric grabbed his phone and whispered, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped. For a moment, everything was silent. Then something dragged across the floor upstairs. Long. Deliberate. Like furniture being moved. Eric backed toward the front door, heart racing. He didn't look up the stairs. He didn't want to. That's when he heard breathing. Right behind him. He spun around. No one was there. The front door was still locked. The room was empty. But the footsteps started again. This time, they were coming down the stairs. Eric ran. He didn't grab his coat. He didn't grab his phone charger. He ran barefoot into the cold night, down the street, until he reached a neighbor's house and banged on the door. Police searched his home later. They found nothing. No signs of entry. No disturbance. But upstairs, in the dust along the hallway floor, there were footprints. There. Leading from the stairs to Eric's bedroom. And stopping directly beside his bed. The second story happened on a highway just outside a small town where New Year's celebrations were minimal and the roads stayed dark. A young couple was driving home after a small gathering. It was past midnight, and snow had started to fall lightly, sticking to the road. They were talking about resolutions. About what they wanted the new year to bring. That's when they noticed the car behind them. It had been there for a while. At first, they didn't think much of it. It was New Year's. People were traveling. But the car never passed them. It stayed the same distance back. Always there. Always watching. The driver sped up slightly. So did the car behind them. He slowed down. The car slowed down. They turned onto a different road. The car followed. The woman looked back and noticed something wrong. The headlights were off. The car was still there. Just dark. They drove faster, fear building with every mile. The road ahead was empty, surrounded by trees heavy with snow. Suddenly, the car behind them flashed its headlights once. Then again. Then turned them off completely. The road ahead dipped sharply, and for a moment, the couple lost sight of the car. Relief washed over them. Then the headlights appeared in front of them. The car was coming toward them. On the wrong side of the road. They swerved at the last second, barely avoiding a collision, and pulled into a gas station parking lot with lights still on. The other car kept going. Never slowing. Never stopping. The couple sat there shaking until police arrived. They never found the vehicle. Later that night, another driver reported a head-on collision on the same stretch of road. No other car was involved. Another story comes from a woman who worked security at an office building. New Year's Eve shifts were usually boring. Most businesses were closed. The building stayed quiet. That night, she was alone. Just her, a desk, and security cameras feeding into a small monitor. As midnight approached, she noticed movement on one of the screens. The building was empty. She zoomed in. Someone was standing in the hallway on the third floor. Tall, thin, facing the camera. Not moving. She radioed in, asking if anyone else was scheduled to be there. No response. She watched the screen. The figure didn't blink, didn't shift, didn't breathe. At exactly midnight, the screen flickered. When it came back on, the hallway was empty. Her radio crackled. A voice came through. Quiet. Calm. Happy New Year. She ran. Police later checked the footage. The third-floor camera showed the hallway empty all night. Except for one frame. A single frozen image, time-stamped exactly at 12 a.m. It showed the figure standing inches from the camera, looking directly into it. Another story happened during a New Year's party in an apartment building downtown. Music was loud. People were drinking. Windows were open despite the cold. One man stepped out onto the fire escape to get some air. From there, he could see into the apartment across the alley. The lights were on. Inside, a family sat perfectly still at a table. No one moved. No one spoke. He waved. No response. He tapped on the glass of his own window to get his friend's attention and pointed. When they looked, the apartment across the way was dark. Empty. No furniture. No people. Later, he checked again. The lights were back on. The family was seated again. Still not moving. Police investigated after multiple residents reported the same thing. The apartment had been vacant for over a year. The final story is the one that stays with people the longest. A man woke up early on New Year's Day to the sound of knocking. Slow. Polite. He assumed it was a neighbor. When he opened the door, no one was there. But on his doorstep sat a small box. Inside was a clock. The time was stopped at exactly 12 a.m. There was a note taped to the back. It read, "You didn't see me when you should have." The man threw the clock away. That night, at exactly midnight, every clock in his house stopped. All at once. He moved out weeks later. The house has been empty ever since. But neighbors say that on New Year's Eve, lights sometimes turn on inside. And just before midnight, someone knocks. When liabilities expand faster than productive capacity, something must absorb the difference. Either defaults occur, or units are redefined. History shows that redefinition is often chosen because it preserves appearances. Gold has always been part of that mechanism, whether acknowledged or not. The idea that a price like $20,000 sounds extreme only reflects how detached current measurements have become. When numbers grow large enough, perspective is lost. At that point, shock is not a sign of impossibility. It's a sign of scale. What most people underestimate is how quickly perception changes once thresholds are crossed. Before shifts happen, they seem impossible. After they happen, they feel inevitable. The question is never whether the system will adjust. It's how, and under what conditions. Gold doesn't force action. It waits. And that patience is precisely why it matters when confidence thins. The modern system is incredibly complex, but its foundation is still trust. Trust in numbers. Trust in continuity. Trust that tomorrow resembles today closely enough to plan. When that trust weakens, anchors become visible again. Gold is one of those anchors. A revaluation wouldn't announce the end of the system. It would acknowledge its limits. It would quietly reset the scoreboard without restarting the game. That subtlety is why it's misunderstood. People expect collapse to be allowed. Most resets aren't. They are administrative, technical, and deeply consequential. The biggest risk is not that gold is revalued. The biggest risk is that people continue believing old measurements reflect present reality. That mismatch creates confusion, frustration, and misallocation of effort. Understanding this doesn't require fear. It requires clarity. Gold isn't a bet on disaster. It's a reference point for honesty. And honesty becomes valuable when complexity hides truth. Whether or not a revaluation occurs through an executive mechanism, the math remains. The pressure remains. The imbalance remains. Systems don't escape arithmetic forever. They eventually align with it. And when they do, outcomes feel sudden only to those who weren't watching.